You think you can just show up here and play the hero? Carter Blake clenched his fists tightly. His voice trembled with fury. You have no idea who you're dealing with, old man. Michael Harrison slowly lifted his eyes from the papers scattered across the floor. His calm gaze met the burning anger in the 18-year-old's eyes. Carter, he said quietly, and in his voice there was something that sent a chill down the boy's spine. You're right. You really don't know who you're messing with. Behind Carter, his friends Jake Martinez and Dylan Cooper gathered. The three were stars of the school football team, reigning kings of Riverside High School. Nobody had ever dared to stand against them. What are you trying to say? Jake hissed, pulling out his phone to record everything. Michael rose slowly from his knees where he had been gathering his things after another prank by the teenagers. His movements were smooth, precise, too precise for an ordinary school teacher. I want to say, he stepped forward, and something in his eyes made even Carter take a step back. That some people come into your life to teach a lesson, and some become the lesson themselves. Are you threatening us? Dylan's voice cracked unexpectedly. Michael smiled sadly. No, Dylan. I am warning you for the last time. Next will be the most interesting part. Stay with us to find out how it all ended. For now, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Monday at 7 in the morning. Milford, Connecticut. Riverside High School greeted a new day with its usual uproar. The echo of teenage voices, the slamming of lockers, and the steady pounding of footsteps filled the corridors. Michael Harrison stood by the main entrance clutching a worn leather satchel. At the age of 43, he looked like a man weathered by life's trials. Graying hair at his temples, deep lines framing his eyes, and slightly stooped shoulders gave no hint of his military past. None of the students passing by took notice. Just another middle-aged teacher, another forgettable face in their world of social media and adolescent dramas. School principal Robert Anderson welcomed Michael in the main office with a forced smile of someone juggling too many challenges at once. Mr. Harrison, welcome to Riverside. I hope your move went smoothly. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Everything's fine, Michael replied, shaking the offered hand while noting the principal's barely perceptible twitch by his eye. Good, good. I should warn you about some peculiarities among our students, Anderson said, clearing his throat awkwardly. Especially a few seniors, Carter Blake, Jake Martinez, Dylan Cooper. They are, how shall I put it, troublesome, Michael stated calmly. Influential, corrected the principal. Their parents sit on the school board. Very generous donors. You get the picture? Michael nodded, understanding far more than Anderson might have guessed. The previous English teacher, Mr. Collins, unfortunately, was unable to connect with these boys. I hope you can do better. What happened to Mr. Collins? Anderson avoided giving a direct answer. Nervous exhaustion, early retirement due to health reasons. Michael mentally noted this information. In his 20 years of teaching, he had encountered many similar situations. Room number 237 was located in the far wing of the school. Michael pushed open the door and stepped into a spacious classroom filled with large windows and rows of desks. The blackboard was covered with crude drawings and offensive words written in chalk, clearly yesterday's gifts from the students. Michael calmly wiped the board clean and began organizing his few belongings. Several books, a stack of notebooks, and a framed family photograph where he was hugging a young woman and a little girl. He turned the photo face down against the wall. Too painful a memory. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the bell rang, and students began entering the classroom. Most looked like ordinary teenagers, some curious, others bored, and a few plainly sleepy from an early wake-up. But as soon as Carter Blake appeared in the doorway with his friends, The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Carter was a tall athlete with perfectly styled dark hair and a confident grin. He wore the school football team's signature jacket, adorned with pins and patches. Jake Martinez and Dylan Cooper flanked him on either side like his personal bodyguards. Famous students instinctively stepped aside, clearing a path toward the back rows. So started Michael when everyone settled down. "My name is Mr. Harrison. I am your new English and literature teacher." Carter openly yawned and placed his feet on the desk in front of another student. "This semester we will explore works that address justice, moral choices, and the consequences of our actions." "Boring," Jake loudly commented, earning laughter from some classmates. Michael continued, as if he had not heard a thing. "Let's begin with a simple question. What is true strength? Who wants to answer?" Emma Richardson, sitting in the front row, raised her hand. "I believe real strength is the ability to help those weaker than you." "Excellent answer, Miss Richardson." Michael nodded approvingly. "Nonsense," Carter scoffed. "Strength is when everyone fears you, when you can do whatever you want, and nobody dares to challenge you." "An interesting perspective, Mr. Blake." Michael turned to him. "What do you think about hidden strength? About people who seem weak, but actually possess incredible power?" "They don't exist," Carter stated confidently. "If you are strong, you show it. Everything else is just weak people trying to act tough." Michael nodded slowly. "We will return to this question later." As the bell rang, signaling the end of the lesson, Carter stood and headed for the exit, passing by the teacher's desk. The teacher accidentally bumped into Michael's backpack, causing him to fall to the floor and scatter its contents everywhere. "Oh, sorry," Carter Blake said with feigned regret. "What a nuisance!" His friends giggled, while the other students quickly left the classroom, not wanting to get involved in the conflict. Michael calmly knelt down and started gathering the papers. Among them were documents no regular schoolteacher was supposed to have. Classified reports, photos of military operations, letters from high-ranking officials. Fortunately, the teenagers were too absorbed in their own arrogance to notice these details. Only Emma Richardson lingered behind. She said, "Mr. Harrison, I am truly sorry. This is how they treat all the new teachers." "Don't worry, Miss Richardson. I have dealt with worse issues," he replied. "They won't stop," the girl warned him. Mr. Collins had thought he could reform them. In the end, he had to be taken from the school in an ambulance during a lesson. He suffered a nervous breakdown when Carter brought a rat into the class and tossed it at him. Michael looked up from the papers he was collecting. A rat. They said it was an experiment to study human reactions to stress. The principal chose not to punish them. Carter's parents donated a new wing to the library. Makes sense. Michael finished picking up the materials and stood. "Thank you for the warning, Emma. Just be careful, all right? They can go very far." After she left, He was alone in the empty classroom. Walking over to the window, he glanced down at the schoolyard. There, Carter Blake and his friends were engaged in a lively argument, occasionally pointing towards the second-floor windows. Michael Harrison took his mobile phone from his pocket and scanned through his contacts. Among them were numbers of social workers, child psychologists, specialists dealing with challenging teenagers, people he had worked with throughout his many years in teaching. Over 2 decades at various schools introduced him to hundreds of kids like Carter, Jake Martinez, and Dylan Cooper. Most simply required the right approach and understanding, though some went too far, just like his own daughter. Michael's hand involuntarily touched the photo on his desk. Emily was only 14 when a group of upperclassmen pushed her to the brink. Even now, he could not think about it without pain. After that tragedy, He dedicated his life to ensuring nothing like it would ever happen again. He studied adolescent psychology, techniques for working with aggressive children, and became an expert in bullying prevention. Now, he recognized all the warning signs of a disaster on the horizon. The afternoon brought new challenges. During the lunch break, Michael headed to the teacher's lounge to eat. But when he opened his food container, a nauseating smell poured out. Someone had placed a dead mouse in his salad. "Trouble, Mr. Harrison?" came a familiar voice from behind. Michael turned around. Standing in the doorway was Robert Anderson. Carter wore an innocent look. "No issues, Mr. Blake. Just assessing the quality of school meals." "Yes, sometimes there are surprises," Carter smirked. "By the way, I heard you are a military man or a veteran. Where did you hear that? Is it true?" Carter's eyes sparkled with hunting enthusiasm. "I wonder in which conflicts you served. Iraq? Afghanistan?" Michael closed the container with spoiled food. "I teach English, Mr. Blake. My past has nothing to do with literature lessons, but it explains why you are here." "Right." Carter stepped closer. "You know what I think? I think you are one of those losers who couldn't find their place in the real world and ended up teaching children. A typical story for weaklings." "Maybe you are right," Michael calmly agreed. Carter expected anger, fury, or an attempt to assert dominance, but such a reaction confused him. "Although," Michael continued as he headed to the exit, "the most dangerous people often look like losers. Keep that in mind." After he left, Carter stayed standing in the teacher's room, reflecting on those words. The next English lesson became a real challenge. Carter, Jake, and Dylan did their best to disrupt the class. They threw paper balls, mimicked animal sounds, fell off chairs pretending to faint. Michael continued the lesson as if nothing was happening. He spoke about William Golding's novel, Lord of the Flies, a story about how civilized children transform into savages when the rules vanish along with the authority of adults. "It is fascinating to consider," he said, scanning the classroom, that the main antagonist of the story, Jake, was neither the strongest nor the smartest boy. Yet, he grasped the psychology of the crowd and knew how to exploit the fears and desires of other kids. Carter stopped his mischief and listened intently. Jake had built a cult of power and cruelty, but eventually his empire collapsed because it was based on fear, not respect. Fear is a very unreliable foundation for leadership. "What happened to Jake in the end?" Dylan asked suddenly. "He was rescued," Michael replied. But the rescue came from outside. Adults stepped in and stopped the chaos. Jake could not handle the consequences of his actions on his own. Carter frowned. He sensed that the teacher was speaking about more than just literature. After class, when most students had left, only one boy remained inside the room. Aaron Wells, a skinny 17-year-old wearing glasses, nervously fiddled with the strap of his backpack. "Mr. Harrison," he whispered. "May I talk to you?" "Of course, Aaron. What is it about?" The boy glanced at the door, making sure no one else was nearby. "They force me to do their homework, Carter and his friends," he said quietly. "It has been going on for 6 months." Michael put down his pen and looked carefully at the teenager. "Tell me everything." "At first, they merely copied from me. Then they demanded I do their assignments completely. They said if I refused." He fell silent. "What did they say?" "That they would post photos online taken in the locker room after gym class. Embarrassing pictures." The boy's voice trembled with shame. "They also took my phone and found private messages with a guy. We are just friends, but they are blackmailing you. It is not only me. I know several others they treat the same way, but no one dares to complain." Michael nodded quietly, processing the information. Mr. Harrison, I am not asking you to get involved. Just if they ask you to change their grades or anything like that, please do not agree. I do not want another teacher to suffer because of me. Aaron leaned forward. Do you know what blackmail is? It is when someone forces you to do something by threatening to expose you. Exactly. But do you know that blackmail is a serious crime? And those who commit it usually do not stop at one victim. Aaron nodded. I understand. But what can I do? My father works for Carter's father. If this comes out, your dad works for Richard Blake? Yes. He is the chief accountant at his construction firm. If Mr. Blake wants, he can fire my dad any time. Michael stood and walked to the window. Outside, the evening was already falling. The short winter day was ending. Aaron, do you know what I think? Sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to show him you can be dangerous too. But I am not dangerous. I wouldn't even hurt a fly, said Michael. He turned to him with a mysterious smile. I do not need you to be the dangerous one. It is enough that I am the one who will be dangerous. Aaron blinked in confusion. What do you mean by that? Nothing yet. Just trust me. All right. Remember, blackmailers fear only one thing. What is that? That their own secrets might become public knowledge. Later that evening, Michael sat in his rented apartment near the school, studying files on his laptop. On the screen were detailed dossiers on all three teenagers. These results came from experts skilled at uncovering information about anyone. Carter Blake, 18 years old, son of the owner of the largest construction firm in the state, captain of the football team. Excellent grades ensured by bribed teachers and homework completed by others. In his free time, he deals drugs among his classmates. 2 hidden incidents involving drunk driving remain unknown to the public. Jake Martinez, 17 years old, adopted son of Judge Martinez. He struggles with aggression and is under psychiatric care. Suspected in several cases of animal abuse, yet charges were dropped due to the influence of his adoptive father. Dylan Cooper, 18, with a congresswoman mother from the state and a famous lawyer father. He battles serious gambling problems and owes a large sum to the local mafia. His parents are unaware of his debts. Each had vulnerabilities. Each had secrets capable of tearing their lives apart. Michael's phone rang. Harrison, speaking. How are things at school? A familiar voice asked without introduction. The situation is worse than we imagined. This is not just typical school bullying. It is organized crime involving minors in central roles. Blackmail, extortion, drug trafficking. There might even be coercion into prostitution. I am still verifying some details. How many victims? At least 7 people I have already identified, probably more. Pause. Follow protocol number 3. Are you sure? Protocol 3 means full exposure. These kids could become tomorrow's serial killers or terrorists. It is better to stop them now. Understood? Michael disconnected and looked back at the laptop screen. Protocol number 3 implied he was no longer limited in his methods. All means were considered acceptable. He opened a new file and began outlining a plan. The next morning, Carter was awakened by a phone call. It was the school administration. Mr. Blake, this is Mrs. Hendricks from the office. You need to come to school with your parents for an urgent meeting with the principal. What is it about? There have been complaints about your behavior. Several students and their parents have contacted the administration. Carter felt his stomach tighten with fear. What complaints? You will learn more at the meeting. We expect you within the hour. The line dropped, Trembling, Carter started scrolling through contacts on his phone looking for Jake's number. "Jake, we need to meet immediately." But when he reached his friend's house, it turned out Jake had received a similar call. Someone had contacted the Juvenile Affairs Department received a report about his aggressive behavior at school. Dylan was also in a state of panic. His mother had gotten an anonymous call from a concerned parent who described how her son was extorting money from younger students. Carter, with trembling hands, started scrolling through his phone contacts, searching for Jake's number. "Jake, we need to meet right now." However, when he reached his friend's house, it turned out Jake had received a similar call. Someone knew about his visits to the psychiatrist, hidden incidents of cruelty, and forged health certificates. Dylan was panicking as well. The caller was aware of his debts, where he got money from, and even that he was stealing from his mother's wallet. "This cannot be a coincidence," Carter said, as they gathered in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. "Someone is deliberately targeting all of us. But who?" Jake nervously paced in circles. Who could know so much? "The only newcomer in our lives is the new teacher," Dylan slowly said. "Harrison? Come on, he is a complete loser. And remember what he said about the most dangerous people?" Carter frowned. "That they often look like losers." Silence fell. "We need to check," Carter finally said. "We have to find out who Michael Harrison really is." Chapter 4. Revealing the Cards. A strange atmosphere settled over the school. Carter, Jake, and Dylan behaved unusually quiet. They stopped bullying weaker students and stopped causing trouble. Disorder disrupted the classes, and they even greeted the teachers. Then Aaron Wells approached Michael after the second English lesson. "Mr. Harrison, something unbelievable happened. Carter returned all the money he had forced me to steal from home and erased every compromising photo from my phone." "That is incredible, Aaron. But I cannot understand why. What happened?" Michael shrugged his shoulders. "Maybe he finally matured, or someone pressured him into doing it." Aaron looked closely at the teacher. "Mr. Harrison, are you really just an English instructor? And what else could I be?" "I do not know. Yet ordinary teachers do not usually transform people so quickly." Michael smiled. "Sometimes people change on their own when they realize the consequences of their actions." After lessons, Michael stayed behind in the classroom, checking notebooks. He knew what awaited him. Sure enough, half an hour later, the door opened, and all three entered. But this time their behavior lacked the usual aggression. They appeared frightened and confused. Mr. Harrison began, "Carter, we need to have a talk." "Of course. Please sit down." The teenagers took seats in the front row, which was unusual. Normally, they would sit at the back of the class. "Was it you?" "Yes," Carter asked directly. "The calls this morning." "Which calls?" "Do not pretend. We know it was you." Michael put down his pen and looked at them carefully. "Suppose it was me." "So what?" "Who are you?" Jake blurted out. "You are not an ordinary teacher." "And what makes you think that?" "Regular teachers do not know such intricate details about students' lives," explained Dylan, "and they cannot access information that is otherwise unattainable." Michael rose from his seat and walked over to the window. "You know, boys, there exists a profession dedicated to protecting people from predators. Sometimes these predators wear military uniforms and fire guns, while other times they don school uniforms and use psychological tactics." "Are you saying you are a spy?" Carter asked skeptically. "I am the one who stops those who bring pain to the innocent," Michael replied. Turning to face them, the teenagers noticed something in his eyes that made them shrink back in their chairs. "Over the past 2 years, 3 students at this school have attempted suicide. 5 others transferred to different institutions, and 2 ended up in psychiatric hospitals. All of this stemmed from the actions of one student group. "We never forced anyone to take their own life," Jake objected. "Then explain to me about Timmy Johnson," Michael pressed. The teens exchanged glances. Timmy Johnson had been a member of their class last year, a quiet, withdrawn boy who suffered regular bullying. "Timmy just moved away," Dylan said hesitantly. "Timmy actually tried to hang himself in his basement," Michael delivered coldly, "after you posted a video of him crying in the school bathroom online. His younger sister was the one who saved him." Silence filled the room. "And Sarah Mitchell? Remember her?" "What happened to her?" Carter asked hoarsely. "She still takes antidepressants after you spread those rumors." About her private life circulated rumors that led her parents to send her to a boarding school for troubled teens. Michael stepped forward, and all 3 instinctively recoiled. "Want to know who I am? I am a teacher with 20 years of experience, working in challenging schools. A man who lost his own daughter to bullying, like the kind you are causing." The teenagers froze. "My Emily was 14 when a group of upperclassmen drove her to attempt suicide. She survived, but the psychological wounds remain forever." Michael paused to gather his strength. "After that event, I studied everything possible about teenage aggression, school bullying, psychology of victims and aggressors. I became an expert in this field." He glanced at each of them. "And when I see kids like you, I know exactly where this will lead if nobody steps in." "What do you want from us?" Carter asked quietly. "I want you to understand a simple truth. Your behavior is destroying lives, and if you do not stop, eventually you will destroy your own as well." "What do you want from us?" Carter repeated softly. "I want you to grasp a simple fact. Your actions have consequences, and these consequences might be far more serious than you imagine." Michael stood up and went to the board, writing down one word: choice. "Each of you faces a decision. You can continue being predators and end up in prison or a psychiatric hospital, or you can change your life, starting from this moment." "What if we refuse to change?" Carter asked defiantly. Michael turned to him with an expression that made the teenager instantly regret his words. "Then I will ensure you have no other option." That evening, Carter sat alone in his room, trying to process everything that had happened. His phone rested on the desk, and he was too afraid to even touch it. What if that distorted voice called again? Without knocking, his father entered the room, a habit that once annoyed Carter but now frightened him. "Son, I need to talk to you." Richard Blake was a formidable man, used to obedience without question. He had built his construction empire from nearly nothing, often using methods that stretched the limits of legality. "I received a strange phone call today," he began, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Someone shared some very interesting information about your school life." Carter froze. "What kind of information?" he asked cautiously. "That my son is involved in blackmail and drug dealing right at school," his father's voice deceptively calm. "Imagine the damage that could do to our family's reputation." "Dad, I can explain everything." "Explain?" Richard stood up sharply. "Do you think I am a fool? That I don't know what you spend the money I give you for allowance on?" Carter realized he was trapped. Whoever had called this morning had clearly not stopped at just him. But the strangest part was, you know what? This person never asked for money and did not try to blackmail me. He merely offered some advice. What advice, exactly? It was better to focus on raising your son before it becomes too late. Richard stepped closer. And you know what? He is right. The blow landed on Arter's face before he could even grasp what was happening. He fell to the floor, clutching his hand to his burning cheek. "You've brought shame to the family," his father growled. He thought his daddy would always protect him, that my money could fix every problem. Richard grabbed his son by the shirt and pulled him to his feet. "From tomorrow onwards, you will work at the construction site. After school, on weekends, and during holidays, you'll carry bags of cement until you understand the value of money and labor. No buts and no exceptions. Also, tomorrow you will go to everyone you have wronged and apologize publicly in front of witnesses." Carter watched his father with wide eyes. He was used to Richard always covering for him, always standing by his side against the world. "You don't understand, do you?" Richard smirked. "Do you think this is unfair? Do you even know what the man who called me promised he would do if you didn't change?" Carter remained silent. "He said that if you are not a different person within a week, all your secrets will become public knowledge. Then neither my money nor my power or connections will save you. Then you'll go to juvenile prison, and later to adult prison." Richard headed for the door but paused. "And you know what is the most frightening? I am beginning to think maybe this will be for the best." The door slammed shut, leaving Carter sat alone, lost in his thoughts, his cheek burning with a fierce heat. Meanwhile, Jake was in the office of the family psychiatrist, Dr. Stephen Wright. His foster parents had brought him here after a similar phone call. "Jake," the doctor spoke gently, "your parents are very worried. They were informed about some incidents at your school." "Who told them?" Jake asked. "That does not matter. The important thing is you have been hiding serious issues with aggression." Jake shifted nervously in the chair, despising these sessions, hating how the doctor looked at him as if examining him under a microscope. "I heard about the cat," the doctor continued. Jake turned pale. "What cat?" he replied. "The one you tortured in the garage last summer. Neighbors saw it. I am not Jake." The doctor said, "Lying will only make things worse. I have pictures." He opened a folder and showed the photos that made the teenager look away. "Do you know what this is called in psychiatry? Sadism. If left untreated, it worsens. First animals, then people. I do not want to harm anyone, but you want to cause pain. Admit it, at least to yourself." Jake remained silent, clenching his fists. "Your foster parents want to place you in a specialized facility for teenagers with behavioral problems," the doctor informed him. "And I believe this is the right decision." "No!" Jake shouted. "Not that! There are real lunatics there." The doctor calmly asked, "And what makes you better than them?" At that moment, Dylan sat at the kitchen table at home, facing his parents. His mother, Congresswoman Elizabeth Cooper, looked. It was as if he had aged 10 years in just one day. $80,000, she repeated firmly. "You owe $80,000 to people who would kill for less." Robert Cooper, the father and a lawyer, silently studied the documents they received. "It says here you took money from my purse," the mother continued, "and from your dad's, from your grandmother's pension, even from the homeless charity fund I manage. Mom, I can pay it all back." "With what?" the father exploded. "You don't have a job, no skills. You can't even manage school without help." Dylan lowered his head, knowing his parents were right. "You know what hurts me the most?" the mother said quietly. "Not that you stole, not that you gambled, but that you made other kids suffer to cover your debts." She pulled photographs from her purse. "These are pictures of children you and your friends pushed to a breakdown. Look at them." Reluctantly, Dylan lifted his eyes. The photos showed kids with empty, lifeless eyes. kids who looked far older than their ages. "This girl is 14, the mother pointed to one photo. 14, and she already tried to end her life twice. "I didn't know. You didn't want to know," the father shouted. "You only cared about yourself." Robert stood and began pacing the kitchen. "Tomorrow morning, you go to the police and confess everything. Blackmail, extortion, everything. But then I'll be arrested, and rightly so." Elizabeth also stood. "Maybe jail is the only place where you— At last, you will understand that your actions carry consequences." "Mom, please no." The mother's voice was as cold as ice. "I have fought for justice my entire life. I will not let my own son turn this fight into a mockery." She headed toward the kitchen exit, but paused at the door. "Also, tomorrow you will see a psychiatrist, because normal people do not take pleasure in others' suffering." The following morning, all three teenagers arrived at school changed. Carter had a bruise under his eye. Jake's eyes were red from crying, and Dylan's hands trembled. They gathered in an empty classroom before classes began. "We are trapped," Carter whispered. "Our parents know everything." "Mine want to send me to a mental hospital," Jake added. "And mine want to throw me in jail," Dylan whispered. Silence fell. "What do we do now?" Jake asked. "I don't know," Carter admitted honestly. "For the first time in my life, I do not know." The door opened, and Michael Harrison entered the room. He appeared as calm as ever, but his eyes carried something new— satisfaction. "Good morning, boys. How was your evening?" Carter lifted his head, and for the first time, Michael saw genuine fear in his eyes. "You have ruined our lives," the teenager croaked. "No," Michael replied calmly as he closed the door behind him. "You destroyed them yourselves. I merely exposed the truth to everyone." Jake jumped up. "My parents want to take away my custody because of you." "Because you tortured animals and bullied weaker children," Michael corrected. "Your parents have finally realized who they truly raised." Dylan wept quietly, burying his face in his hands. "His mother declared that I am dead to her, that she no longer has a son." Michael stepped closer and said, "You know what? She's right. The person you were must die for someone new to be born." "You are insane," Carter shouted, standing up. "You are a sick person who enjoys others' suffering." Michael stopped just a few steps away and asked, "Want to know who really enjoys causing pain? Look into the mirror. I am not that person." Then Michael took out his phone and played a video. "Explain this to me then," he said. On the screen appeared footage captured by a hidden camera. Carter, Jake, and Dylan were beating a skinny boy in the school restroom. The audio was on, and their laughter echoed over his cries for help. "Where did you get this, you gasping idiot?" Jake demanded. "I have records of everything you did for the past 2 years. Every insult. Every act of cruelty." Michael put his phone away. "Want to know how many children you hurt? 23? 23 lives broken for your amusement." Dylan raised his tear-streaked face. "We did not want to." "Did not want to?" Michael's voice grew ice-cold. "You did not want to when you forced Aaron Wells to eat from a trash bin? Did not want to when you posted Sarah Mitchell's private photos? Did not want to when you drove Timmy Johnson to attempt suicide?" Each word hit like a dagger. "But you know what frightens me most," Michael continued. "Even now, you cannot grasp the full extent of your actions. About the havoc you have caused. You only think about yourselves, your own troubles, your own pain." He scanned them with his eyes. None of you have considered what your victims feel. Carter clenched his fists. Enough! I will not listen to this anymore. He rushed toward the door, but Michael was quicker. His hand landed on the teenager's shoulder, and Carter froze, feeling the iron grip. Sit down, Michael said softly, his voice carrying something that made Carter obey without protest. Now, listen to me carefully. Michael returned to the board and wrote one word on it. Price. Every action carries a price, and it is time to pay the bill. What do you mean by that? Dylan stammered. Michael turned to them, his eyes void of any humanity. I want to say that your story is not over yet. What happened yesterday was only the beginning. He took a thick folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. Michael pulled out several sheets of paper and laid them on the desk. This is an agreement for voluntary community service, a rehabilitation program for troubled teenagers. What kind of work? Jake asked warily. You will assist at the local orphanage, every day after school for 3 hours, and on weekends for 6 hours over the course of 4 months. And what if we refuse? Dylan tried to bluff. Michael calmly took out his phone. Then I will call the parents of every child you bullied and tell them everything. He revealed the details of what they had done to their children, warning that the parents would soon report everything to the authorities. Then he showed them a list of contacts. I have the numbers of 32 families, 32 children who have become your victims over the past 2 years. The teenagers turned pale. Blackmailing minors, extortion, forcing theft, psychological abuse. All these actions carry criminal charges, even for those underage. Michael handed each of them a pen. Choose community service for 4 months or years in a juvenile detention center. He showed them one of the photos, Carter handing a small bag of drugs to a young schoolboy. Can you imagine the headlines? Son of a local tycoon dealing drugs at school. Adopted son of the judge, a sadist, and an animal killer. Congressman's daughter raised a blackmailer and extortionist. The teens went pale. Your parents will lose their jobs. Your families will become outcasts, and you will spend the coming years locked up in juvenile detention. Carter grabbed the pen with a shaking hand. You may be, Michael agreed, but I am the one who protects innocent people from those like you. One by one, the teenagers signed the papers. Excellent, Michael said, as he gathered the documents. Tomorrow at 4 in the afternoon, you will go to the Hope Shelter on Main Street. Mrs. Garcia, the director, will be waiting for you. She will explain your responsibilities. And what exactly will we be doing there? Jake asked gloomily. You will learn what it means to be defenseless. You will understand what it is like to depend on the kindness of strangers. Maybe, for the first time in your life, you will truly understand what your victims experience. Michael moved toward the exit, but paused at the door. Remember, I will be watching your every move. The slightest mistake, the smallest attempt to escape, and the agreement will be void, he warned. After he left, the 3 teenagers sat in deafening silence. What have we done? Dylan finally whispered. No one answered. They did not really know themselves. Hope Shelter was located in an old building on the edge of town. The paint was peeling, the windows were taped up, and the roof was leaking. This place was meant for kids whom no one wanted. Orphans, abandoned children, victims of domestic violence. Carter, Jake, and Dylan stood in front of the entrance, hesitant to go inside. Maybe we should run away, Jake suggested. Where to? Carter replied with a bitter smile. He will find us anywhere. The door opened, and an elderly Latina woman in a simple dress stepped out. She was Mrs. Garcia, the shelter director. Are you 3 from the school? She asked with a slight accent. The teenagers nodded. Come in, we have a lot of work. Inside, the shelter looked even worse. Cracked walls, old furniture, the smell of dampness and something sour. Children of various ages ran through the halls, from toddlers to teens. All of them appeared tired, sad, and lost. There are 43 children living here, Mrs. Garcia explained. We have only 4 staff members. Volunteer help is greatly needed. She showed them around the rooms. In each one, there were 6 to 8 beds placed almost side by side. Personal belongings. The children had almost nothing with them, only the bare essentials. Maria introduced an 8-year-old girl with large, sorrowful eyes. Her mother had died from an overdose. She did not know her father. The girl clung nervously to the wall, watching the strangers. Then Maria pointed out James, a boy about 12 with a scar on his face. He had been beaten by his stepfather, who had broken his arm in 3 places. Jake turned away. He could not bear to look at the scar. Your task is to help the children with their lessons. Feed them, play with them, and read them bedtime stories. In short, be the older siblings they never had. Maria paused in front of the teens' room. But remember, these children have witnessed things no child should ever see. They do not trust adults. It will be difficult for them to accept you. The door to the room was slightly open, and soft voices could be heard inside. Carter peeked in and saw a group of teenagers sitting on the floor in a circle. They were whispering while occasionally casting wary glances toward the door. "What are they doing?" he asked. "They are sharing their stories," Mrs. Garcia replied quietly. "This helps them cope with their trauma." One of the teenagers, a 16-year-old with a shaved head and tattoos on his arms, lifted his head and stared directly at Carter. "Hey, newcomers!" he shouted. "Come in, don't be shy." Carter, Jake, and Dylan entered the room hesitantly. The other teens studied them with curiosity and suspicion. "My name is Marcus," introduced the boy with an authoritative tone. "Tattoos. This is our cheerful group of misfits," he said, pointing around. There was a slender girl with short black hair, an Asian-looking boy with frightened eyes, and a red-haired girl who appeared to be about 14. "Tell us what brought you to our little paradise." Carter, Jake, and Dylan exchanged glances. How could they explain to these kids that they were here as a form of punishment? "We are volunteers," Carter finally said. Marcus was unconvinced. "Volunteers? Really? I thought you ran away from a juvenile detention center." "Why would you think that?" Jake asked tensely. "Because your faces say it." "I've done bad things," Marcus smirked. "Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I used to be just like you." He rolled up his sleeve to reveal scars on his forearm. "See, I used to cut myself when I was feeling terrible. And I felt terrible every day since my father started abusing me." An awkward silence fell over the room. "Now it's your turn," Marcus continued. "What have you done?" Carter felt his cheeks burning with shame. These kids, who had lived through real horrors, looked at him expectantly, and he had to admit that he had bullied others like them for fun. "We did bad things at school," he murmured. "What kind of things?" Marcus pressed on. Dylan couldn't hold back. "We used to pick on weak kids, humiliate them, and force them to give us money." The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The teenagers tensed, and their faces grew cold. "So, you're those bastards," Marcus said slowly. "Those because of whom children end up here." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Do you see that girl?" Marcus nodded toward the red-haired one. "Her name is Emily. She got here after a group of upperclassmen at her former school pushed her to a breakdown. Just like you did." Emily shrunk inside when she heard her name. And Kevin, he pointed at the Asian boy, ran away from home after school bullies posted a video online of them beating him up. His parents blamed him, not the attackers. Carter felt something inside him break. "We did not know," he started. "We did not know," Marcus exploded. "Or maybe you just did not want to know. You did not care about what happened to your victims after you played with them." He stood up and moved closer. "Do you know what is the worst thing for a child facing bullying? It is not the pain itself, but the fact they start truly believing that they deserve it, that they are not worthy of respect or love." Marcus pointed at the scars on his arm. "This is what happens to children you break. They begin to hurt themselves because they think they do not deserve better." Jake turned away, unable to look at the marks. "And some," Marcus continued, "just end their lives, like my brother." He pulled out a photo from his pocket and showed it to them. It was a boy about 14 years old with a kind smile. His name was Tommy. He hanged himself in his room after classmates filmed them beating him up in the bathroom and uploaded the video online. Tears welled up in Dylan's eyes. He was only 14 years old. Marcus's voice trembled. He dreamed of becoming a doctor and helping others, but instead, he decided the world would be better off without him. Marcus hid the photo, so do not tell me you didn't know. You simply did not want to face the consequences. A heavy silence filled the room. Carter, Jake, and Dylan sat with their heads down, unsure of what to say. But then Marcus suddenly said, "You have a chance to make things right." "How?" Carter asked hoarsely. "Assisting kids like us, showing them that not all older kids are hopeless?" Marcus reached out to Carter. "My name is Marcus. If you truly want to change, I am ready to help." The first days at the shelter turned into a true nightmare for the three teenagers. The children did not trust them. Caretakers treated them with suspicion, and the job proved much tougher than expected. Carter helped the little ones with their homework, but they were constantly distracted, crying, and demanding attention. He was used to having his wishes obeyed without question. Here, patience was required, something he never had before. Jake worked in the kitchen, washing dishes and assisting with meal preparation. The physical labor exhausted him. His hands were covered in scrapes from the cleaning agents. His back ached from standing at the sink all the time. Dylan read bedtime stories to the kids, but when he saw their scared, distrustful eyes, his voice betrayed the nervousness he felt. These children reminded him of the sacrifices made by his own victims. At the end of the first week, Mrs. Garcia called them into her office. "How is everything going?" she asked. "It's tough," Carter Blake admitted honestly. "That's good. If it were easy, you wouldn't be learning anything," she said. She pulled a file folder from her desk drawer. "Would you like to see the files of the kids you are working with?" The teenagers exchanged glances and nodded. Mrs. Garcia opened the first file. Maria, 8 years old. Her mother died from a drug overdose when the girl was 5. For 2 years, she lived with her grandmother until the grandmother was hospitalized due to a stroke. The last year, Maria lived in 3 different foster homes. Every time she was returned. "Why?" Dylan Cooper asked. "Nightmares, bedwetting, panic attacks. These are common signs of post-traumatic stress in children." She turned the page. James, 12 years old. His stepfather had been abusing him regularly for 4 years. His mother knew about it, but did nothing. The boy ended up in the hospital with a broken arm and internal injuries. Only then did Child Protective Services step in. Carter felt a lump form in his throat. Kevin, 15 years old, had come from South Korea with his parents 2 years ago. At school, he was subjected to constant bullying because of his accent and appearance. Classmates recorded videos of him being beaten and posted them online. His parents accused him of bringing shame to the family. Jake Martinez clenched his fists. He recognized his own past actions in this story. Emily, 14 years old. A group of older girls at her school created a fake social media profile where they posted hurtful messages supposedly from her. Her name. The girl became an outcast, lost every friend, and tried to take her own life. After swallowing her mother's pills, Dylan covered her face with her hands. "Do you want to know what these kids have in common?" Mrs. Garcia asked. The teenagers remained silent. They all believe they deserve mistreatment and that they are unworthy of love and respect. This is what bullying does to children. She closed the folder. Each of these children could grow up to be a doctor, a teacher, an artist, but instead, they fight simply to survive. Carter lifted his head. How can we help them? Show them they are worthy of love, that someone cares, that they are not alone. Mrs. Garcia stood up. Now go to work. And remember, every word, every gesture might become a ray of hope, or another wound for these kids. 3 weeks passed. Carter, Jake, and Dylan gradually adapted to working at the shelter. The children began to trust them, although some remained wary. One evening, Carter was helping 7-year-old Michael with drawing. The boy was extremely quiet, barely speaking, always staying apart from the other kids. "What are you drawing?" Carter asked. Michael showed his picture. It depicted a family, mother, father, and a small boy. All were smiling. "Is this your family?" The boy nodded. "Where are they now?" "Mom is in the sky," Michael whispered softly. "And Dad?" "He did not want me." Carter felt his heart tighten with pain. He recalled how cruelly he used to bully defenseless children like these, and it filled him with remorse. The shame was unbearable. "Michael," he said gently, "do you know that you are a very good boy?" The child looked at him in surprise. "Really? Really? And what happened to your parents is not your fault." Michael pondered. "Then why did Dad say that I am bad, and that Mom died because of me?" Carter felt something twist inside him. This little boy blamed himself for his mother's death, just because someone told him so. "Listen carefully." Carter crouched down to meet the child's eye level. "Your dad said something foolish. Adults sometimes say foolish things when they are hurting. You are not to blame for what happened to your mom." "How do you know that?" Michael asked suspiciously. "Because I once was bad. Very bad. And I know how bad people act. But you are not like that." The boy studied Carter's face intently. "And now you are good?" "I am learning to be good," Carter answered honestly. "Every day I learn." Michael smiled for the first time since Carter had known him. "Can you teach me to be good?" Carter felt tears welling up. "You already are good, Michael. You just needed someone to tell you that." Meanwhile, in the next room, Jake was playing a board game with a group of children. One of the boys, 10-year-old David, kept cheating in a desperate attempt to win. Previously, Jake would have exploded and yelled at the child, but now he understood what was behind this behavior. Behind this behavior lies a desperate wish to be better than others in some way. "David," he said softly, "let's try to play fair." "Why?" the boy snapped back. "I will lose anyway." "Who said that losing is bad? My father used to say that losers only deserve to be kicked." Jake froze. Those words were almost an exact match to what he himself had told his victims at school. "Your father was wrong," he replied. "Losing is okay. What really matters is trying. You are just saying that so I do not get upset." "No, Jake met the boy's eyes. I say this because I thought differently for a long time, and it made me a bad person. David blinked in surprise. You were bad. Very bad. Picking on kids weaker than me. Why? Because I believed it made me strong. But in reality, it made me pathetic. Jake leaned back in his chair. You know what I realized? True strength is in protecting the weak, not hurting them. David nodded thoughtfully and removed extra game pieces he had secretly added to his playing field. In a children's bedroom, Dylan was reading a fairy tale to a group of little ones. Among them was Emily, the red-haired girl who had ended up in the shelter after being bullied at school. When Dylan finished reading, Emily approached him. Could you read another one? Of course, whichever you want. About Cinderella. Dylan opened a book and began telling the story of a girl mistreated by her stepsisters, but who eventually found happiness. Why were her stepsisters so mean? Emily asked. Were they mean? Emily asked. Probably because they were hurting themselves, Dylan replied. Sometimes people do harmful things not because they are bad, but because they do not know how to be kind. And the girls at my school also did hurtful things because they were hurting too. Dylan felt a pang of guilt. He pictured the little girl trying to make sense of her bullies by finding reasons for their cruelty. Emily, he said softly, it does not matter if they were hurting or not. No one has the right to treat you badly. But they said it was my fault. They lied. Dylan crouched down beside the girl's bed. You are not to blame. Never blame yourself. Do you understand? Emily nodded, but her eyes still held doubt. How do you know? She asked. Dylan thought for a moment. He could have lied or said something comforting. But this child deserved the truth, because I used to hurt kids like you myself, he admitted quietly. And I know that we always looked for reasons to justify what we did. We said the victims were to blame, but it was a lie. Emily looked at him carefully. Why did you do it? Because I thought it would make me important, strong. Did it? Dylan shook his head. No, it made me a pathetic coward who felt big only by putting others down. The girl considered this. Are you like that now? I am learning every day not to be. Emily reached out and gently touched his cheek. I think you are a good person, Dylan. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Forgiving this child meant more to him than anything else in his life. A whole month spent working at the shelter had transformed all three teenagers. They learned to recognize the pain in children's eyes, to sense their fears, and to understand their needs. But most importantly, they grasped what it truly means to be responsible for someone else's life. Carter grew especially close to 7-year-old Michael, a boy who rarely spoke and constantly drew the same picture. A house, a mother, and himself. Every day Carter spent hours with him, slowly earning his trust. Michael, he whispered one evening, tell me about your mom. The boy lifted his eyes from the drawing. She was good. She used to read me stories. What happened? She got sick, really sick, then went to the hospital and never came back. Carter felt his heart tighten. This child had lost his mother not because of anyone's cruelty, but simply due to illness. And yet he suffered deeply. What about your dad? Michael frowned. Dad said I remind him of Mom, that it hurts to look at me, and he gave me to this place. That's not fair, Carter said sincerely. What does fair mean? The boy asked with innocent curiosity. Carter thought for a moment. He once believed fairness was when the strong ruled the weak, when someone had the right to do whatever they wished because they were more popular, richer, or more powerful. Fair means no one harms those who cannot protect themselves. Protect yourself, he said softly. And you? Did you ever hurt others before? Carter froze. How could he possibly explain the extent of his cruelty to a 7-year-old? Yes, Michael, I did hurt other children. Why? Because I thought it would make me important. The boy paused thoughtfully. Did it? No, it made me a bad person. Michael held out his drawing. Do you want me to draw you as a good person? Carter felt tears well up in his eyes. This small soul who had endured so much pain was willing to see good in him. Michael, do you know you are the kindest boy I have ever met? Really? Really. And anyone who does not appreciate you is simply foolish. In the next room, Jake was working with a group of teenagers. Among them was 15-year-old Kevin, the Korean boy Mrs. Garcia had mentioned. Kevin barely spoke English and always kept to himself. Other children in the shelter avoided him not out of malice, but because they did not know how to interact with him. Jake remembered how he used to bully outsiders in his own school, children who were different from most. Now, looking at Kevin, he saw all his past victims. Carefully, he approached the boy. How are you? The teenager looked up fearfully. I do not understand well. No problem. I will help. Jake sat down beside him and took out an English textbook. Let's learn together. Kevin glanced at him suspiciously. Why are you helping me? Because before he used to bully kids like you, but now he wants to make amends. Kevin studied his face carefully. Were you really bad? Very bad, but now I am learning to be good. The boy nodded. All right, I am learning too. For the next 2 weeks, they spent every evening together. Jake helped Kevin improve his English, while Kevin shared stories about Korea, his family, and the fear he felt being in a foreign land. At school, the other kids hit me, Kevin once confessed. They said I did not belong here. Jake clenched his fists. He recognized his own past actions in Kevin's story. Kevin, that is not true. You have every right to be here. This is your home now. But I am different, and that's okay. The world would be dull if everyone were the same. Kevin smiled for the first time since they met. You can be my big brother. Jake felt something stir deep inside. This boy, despite all the humiliation he had faced, was still willing to trust him. Of course, Kevin, I will be your big brother. Meanwhile, Dylan met 14-year-old Emily. She had come to the shelter after being bullied at school. She barely left her room, constantly reading books and avoiding other children. Emily, he quietly called, peeking into her room. May I come in? The girl nodded without looking up from her book. What are you reading? Jane Eyre, a sad book. I like sad books, Emily said softly. They don't allow the characters to suffer forever, but in the end, they find happiness. Dylan sat on the edge of the bed. Do you think something like that really happens in life too? The girl shrugged her shoulders. I do not know. So far, I have only seen suffering. Tell me what happened at your school. Emily closed her book and stayed silent for a long time. Then she started speaking in a quiet, monotone voice. They called me ugly. Every single day, during every break. They created a group on social media called Emily Monster. They posted my photos there with captions. Dylan listened, feeling nausea rising inside him. They took pictures of me secretly, when I was eating, when changing for gym class, when I cried in the bathroom and posted them with comments like, "Look at this fat pig," or "Someone should tell her the truth about how she looks." Oh my God. But the worst part was that even those I thought were friends joined in. They were afraid that if they stood up for me, they would become outcasts too. Emily opened the book again but did not read, just stared at the page. "Do you know what is the scariest thing about bullying?" she asked. "It is not the bullying itself, but that you start believing what they say about you, that you are really ugly, that you deserve to be treated badly." Dylan felt something breaking inside him. He remembered all the kids he had bullied together with Carter and Jake. Did they all feel the same way? "Emily," he said quietly, "I also participated in bullying. At another school, with other children. But I was doing the same thing." The girl raised her eyes. "Why?" "Because." He believed that this made him cool, that if he humiliated others, he himself became more important. But did he? Dylan shook his head. No, he became a pitiful coward who only feels big by putting down those smaller than him. Emily studied his face closely. "And now you regret every second. Then you are no longer the person you used to be." "How do you know?" "Because bad people never feel regret. They always find excuses." 6 weeks into working at the shelter, an event occurred that changed everything for good. A new child was brought to the shelter, a 13-year-old boy named Lucas. When Carter saw him, he nearly dropped from shock. Lucas was almost an exact replica of Aaron Wells, the very boy they had blackmailed and bullied at school. The same thin frame, the same frightened eyes behind glasses, the same way of keeping to himself. "What happened to him?" Carter asked Mrs. Garcia. "The usual story. A group of older students chose him as a target. They filmed themselves beating him and posted the videos online. His parents decided it was easier to send him to the shelter than fight the system." Carter felt panic rise inside him. This boy was a living reminder of his crimes. Lucas sat in the corner of the cafeteria, poking at his food with a fork but not eating. He carried an aura of complete despair. "Hi," Carter said cautiously as he approached. "My name is Carter." The boy lifted his eyes. They held so much pain that Carter almost looked away. "I know who you are," he whispered. Lucas spoke with bitterness. "So, Mrs. Garcia told you? That you three were once troublemakers, and now you work here as punishment?" Carter sat down on the chair opposite him. "Is that true? So you are just like them, like those who bullied me. You were the same, but you do not want to be anymore." Lucas gave a bitter smile. "That is what everyone says. But then it all starts again. Lucas, do not pretend that you care. People like you do not care about people like me. We are just entertainment for you." The boy stood up and ran out of the cafeteria. Carter remained seated, frozen by his words. The voice of Lucas was filled with so much hatred and despair, it was frightening, and Carter realized this must be how Aaron felt. These were exactly the words he wanted to say to him, but never dared. That night, Carter could not sleep. He kept thinking about Lucas, Aaron, and all the kids they had hurt. The next morning, Carter found Lucas in the shelter library. The boy sat with a book but was not reading, simply staring out the window. "Lucas, I need to tell you something." "I do not want to listen." "Please, it is important." Lucas reluctantly turned to him. "There was a boy at my school called Aaron Wells. He was very much like you. Quiet, smart, kind." Carter paused. "My friends and I made his life miserable. We forced him to do our homework, stole money from his parents, and humiliated him. We blackmailed him with compromising photos." Lucas listened without looking away. Aaron had tried several times to ask for help, but we convinced him that no one believed that the system was on our side, and that resistance would only worsen his situation. And what happened? Carter swallowed hard. He tried to end it all, taking a large amount of sleeping pills. Lucas turned pale. They saved him and revived him at the hospital. But when he woke up, the first thing he said was, "I just wanted the pain to stop." Tears streamed down Carter's cheeks. You know what? I realized that we were not merely tormenting him, but slowly destroying his soul. Day by day, word by word, humiliation after humiliation. Lucas remained silent. Now, when I look at you, I see him. I see the same boy who was driven to despair, and I understand that there are millions like you and him. Carter stood up. Lucas, I am not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know you are not alone, and what they did to you is not your fault. He headed for the exit, but Lucas called him back. Carter, right? What about Aaron now? He got accepted into medical school. He wants to become a psychiatrist to help children who have gone through similar experiences. Lucas paused. Did he forgive you? Yes. I don't know why. But he forgave. Maybe because he understood hate destroys the one who hates, not the one who is hated. Carter looked at the boy in surprise. How do you know that? I read it in a psychology book. This place has a big library. That same day, the parents of all 3 teenagers unexpectedly arrived at the shelter. Richard Blake, Judge Martinez and his wife, and Congresswoman Elizabeth Cooper with her husband. Mrs. Garcia welcomed them into her office. We want to take our children back, declared Richard Blake. This whole community service idea has gone too far. Why do you think so? The principal asked calmly. Because they are changing, exploded Elizabeth Cooper. Dylan calls every day telling me about some orphaned kids. He cries on the phone. He never used to cry, and Jake has become so soft, added Mrs. Martinez. Yesterday, he saw a report on homeless animals and burst into tears. That is not normal for a boy. Carter wants to enroll in a social college, Richard complained. He has abandoned all plans to run my business. Mrs. Garcia listened carefully to everyone. I'm sorry, but I do not see the problem. Your children are learning compassion. Compassion is weakness, shouted Richard. In business you must be tough, and in court fair but not sentimental, agreed Judge Martinez. In politics, you should be rational, not emotional, added Congresswoman Cooper. Mrs. Garcia stood up. You know what I will tell you? Your upbringing is exactly what turned your children into troublemakers. A tense silence filled the room. You taught them strength is more important than kindness, success outranks honesty, and money outweighs humanity. She walked to the window. Because of that, they nearly drove a child to suicide. It is not our fault, yelled Richard. No. Who taught Carter that wealth gives the right to humiliate the poor? Who showed Jake that violence solves problems? Who explained, Dylan, is lying better than the truth? The parents remained silent. Your children are here for the first time in their lives, learning how to become human beings. And now, you want to take them away? At that moment, the door opened and Carter, Jake, and Dylan entered the room. They overheard voices and came to see what was happening. Dad, Carter said with surprise, what are you doing here? We are taking you home, Richard replied sharply. Stop playing at charity, Carter responded. But I do not want to leave. What? Carter looked at his father with newfound confidence. I said I do not want to leave here. I need you. You need to finish school and prepare for business college admissions. I want to enter social college. Richard blanched. You will not work with those losers. You are the heir to an empire. What empire? Carter whispered quietly. Built on others' suffering. Are you talking nonsense? No, Dad. I spoke before when I echoed your words about the weak being made to be ruled by the strong. Carter stepped forward. Do you know what I have realized over these weeks? True strength lies in protecting the weak, not humiliating them. Richard swung his arm to hit his son, but Carter did not flinch. Hit me, he said calmly. Show everyone how strong you are. His father's hand froze mid-air. Meanwhile, Judge Martinez tried to take Jake away. Come on, son. At home, a psychiatrist is waiting for you. I no longer need a psychiatrist, Jake replied. I understand where my aggression came from. Where from? From you. From your example. You always decided. He forced problems, yelled at his mother, and hit me. For discipline, he taught that the weak must be despised. The judge stepped back. I was teaching you to be a man. No, you were teaching me to be a beast. Congressman Cooper pulled Dina toward the exit. Enough of this show. We are going home. Mom, stop. What? Dylan freed himself from her grip. For the first time in my life, I am doing something meaningful, helping children who have endured what our victims experienced. What victims? This is just school pranks. Mom, one boy almost ended his life because of our pranks. Elizabeth Cooper grew pale. That is not true. It is true. And do you know the worst part? He forgave us. And we do not deserve that. Dylan looked into his mother's eyes. You have spent your whole life fighting for justice in politics, but at home, you taught me that lying is acceptable if it helps achieve a goal. I did not teach you that, Mom, when I said, say I am not home. When I asked you to lie about your whereabouts, when I explained that promises to voters are just words. Congressman Cooper sank into a chair. Mom, I do not want to be like before. I do not want to be a copy of Dad who lies in court, or you who lies to voters. Mrs. Garcia watched the scene with sad satisfaction. You see, she said quietly to the parents, your children have become better, and you want to take them back to their old life? On the last day of their volunteer work, Mrs. Garcia gathered all three of them in her office. How do you feel? She asked. Different, Carter answered honestly. Be true, and you will see the world as it is. What do you see? Pain. So much pain that we have caused without even realizing it? Mrs. Garcia nodded. What do you intend to do with this knowledge? Before anyone could reply, the door opened. Michael Harrison entered the office. Mr. Harrison, Jake was surprised. What are you doing here? I came to check on your progress, Michael answered calmly, and to talk to you one last time. He took a seat opposite them. Do you know why I'm really here? The teenagers remained silent. Because an hour ago I received a call from the hospital, and Aaron Wells is in intensive care. A cold shiver ran through their veins. What happened? Dylan whispered. An overdose of sleeping pills. A suicide attempt. Carter felt the world collapsing around him. He left a note, Michael continued. Do you want to know what it said? No one responded. I can't take it anymore. Every day is torture. Carter Blake and his friends broke me. But even now, when they supposedly have changed, I cannot forget. The scars on my soul do not heal as fast as others wish. Jake buried his face in his hands. Everyone says you have to forgive and forget. But how do you forgive those who turned your life into hell? How do you erase humiliation, fear, and sleepless nights? Michael paused, allowing his words to sink in. Maybe they have really changed. Maybe now they help other kids. But that does not return my lost years, erase my memories, or heal my soul. Dylan quietly sobbed. I am tired of fighting the pain. Tired of waking up each morning haunted by what happened to me. Tired of pretending everything is fine. Michael pulled out his phone. If you are reading this, it means I have made a decision. Do not blame yourselves. Just remember, words carry power, and some wounds may never heal. A heavy silence fell over the room. But do you know what is most surprising? Michael leaned forward. Aaron survived. The doctors revived him just in time. All three raised their heads, and when he came to, the first thing he said was, I do not want them to blame themselves. I just wanted the pain to stop. Carter lifted his head. Is he alive? Alive? And you know what else? He wanted to send a message that he forgives you. Tears still streamed down the cheeks of all three teenagers. But Aaron's forgiveness does not erase the fact that your actions had consequences, Michael continued. He will need a long recovery mentally, emotionally, maybe for his entire life. Michael stood up. The doctors said he will need support. People who understand his suffering. People who know what remorse feels like. What do you suggest? Carter asked hoarsely. Go see him. Talk to him. Not to ask for forgiveness. You already have that. But to show he is not alone. Michael headed toward the exit. It's up to you. But remember, a second chance is not always given. And not to everyone. The hospital room was filled with flowers and cards, and Aaron Wells lay in bed, hooked to an IV drip. He looked much older than his 17 years. When Carter, Jake, and Dylan entered, he turned slowly toward them. His head moved slightly. Hello, he whispered quietly. Hello, Aaron. An uncomfortable silence lingered between them. How are you feeling? Dylan asked gently. Alive, Aaron replied with a sad smile. That was something. Carter stepped closer. Aaron, I do not need to say this again. We have already discussed it, yet every time we meet, I feel compelled to. Aaron sighed deeply. All right, go ahead. I am sorry. I am truly sorry for everything we put you through. For each day you were scared to go to school. Every night you could not fall asleep. Every tear you shed because of us. Carter, let me finish. I know words will not change anything. They cannot give you back lost years or erase memories, but I want you to know we have changed. Aaron nodded faintly. I know. I heard about the work you have been doing at the shelter. Jake walked over to the window. Aaron, why did you forgive us after everything that happened? Aaron pondered. Because hatred was killing me from within. Every day, every minute I thought about how much I despised you all and realized I was just allowing you to ruin my life. Forgiveness is not a gift to you. It is a gift to yourself. A way to free yourself from pain. Dylan started to say, but you still tried. Yes, because forgiveness is a process, not a single moment decision. Sometimes pain feels stronger than the desire to live. Aaron looked at them. But you know what stopped me in the last moment? The thought that my death would change nothing. That there would be new victims, new bullies, new tragedies. And what did you decide? What if I want to change the world, then I must remain in it. Aaron reached out his hand toward the nightstand and grabbed a brochure I applied to medical school. I want to become a child psychiatrist to help children like you. Carter asked to support all children, both victims and bullies, because both groups need assistance. He looked at them seriously. So what do you plan to do next? Carter, Jake, and Dylan exchanged glances. We would like to start a foundation, Carter said. A foundation to support victims of school violence. And what will it be called? The Aaron Wells Foundation. Aaron raised his eyebrows in surprise. My name. If you do not mind, you have become a symbol that it is possible to survive bullying and still keep your humanity. Aaron was silent for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but with one condition. What condition? The foundation will aid not only victims, but also bullies, rehabilitation programs, psychological support, family work. Why? Jake asked in disbelief. Because most bullies were once victims themselves. The cycle of violence must be broken, not just punished. The auditorium of Springfield Central High School was packed. 4 young individuals stood on stage who looked older than their years. My name is Aaron Wells. The first began. 3 years ago, I ended up in the hospital after a suicide attempt caused by school bullying. The room fell into complete silence. I was humiliated. Blackmailed, my life turned into a nightmare by 3 classmates. There they are standing beside me. Aaron pointed toward Carter Blake, Jake Martinez, and Dylan Cooper. Carter Blake, Jake Martinez, and Dylan Cooper, once my tormentors, are now united allies fighting against bullying. A murmur of surprise spread across the room. You might wonder, how is this possible? How can a victim collaborate with those who hurt them? Aaron paused before I answered, because revenge does not heal wounds. Only understanding, forgiveness, and working together can transform the world. Carter stepped up to the microphone. 3 years ago, I was a selfish bully who enjoyed causing pain to others. I believed strength meant having people fear you. He glanced around the room. But true strength lies in admitting your mistakes and changing your life for the better. Then Jake took the microphone. I was an aggressive teenager who solved conflicts with fists. I thought violence was normal. He shook his head. It took me a year working with orphaned children to realize violence only breeds more violence, while love creates love. Dylan was the last to speak. I used to be weak-willed and participated in cruelty because I feared being alone. His voice trembled. But loneliness is better than being complicit in others' suffering. Aaron grabbed the microphone again. Over 3 years, our foundation has helped more than 1,000 children, both victims and bullies. We learned the most important lesson. Evil can only be defeated by kindness. He scanned the room. Each of you could become a bully. Everyone has the potential to hurt the weaker, but everyone also has the power to choose differently. Someone can make a different choice. Carter added, choosing to protect rather than to attack, choosing to support instead of to humiliate. Jake continued, choosing to be human instead of behaving like a beast. Dylan concluded, choosing to love rather than to hate. Aaron stepped forward. He said, remember, your words hold power. Your actions carry consequences, and each one of you has the ability to change someone's life for better or worse. The audience erupted with lasting applause. After the speech, a group of teenagers approached them with questions, thanks, and requests for help. A girl about 14 years old quietly told Aaron, thank you. I thought no one cared, that I was all alone. He replied gently, You are not alone, and never will be as long as we live." When the room emptied, the four friends stood on the stage, hugging each other. "Do you think we changed anything?" Carter asked. "We tried," Aaron responded, "and we will keep trying forever." Jake nodded. "Some mistakes cannot be fixed, but they can become lessons for others." Dylan added, "And some wounds turn into sources of strength." Aaron smiled. "You know what is the most incredible? 3 years ago, I wanted to die because of you all, and now I cannot imagine life without you." "Why?" Carter asked. "Because you remind me every day that people can change, that evil is not eternal, and that hope always exists." They left the school together, heading toward the bus that would take them to the next city, to the next kids who they need their support, moving on to the next opportunity to demonstrate to the world that forgiveness holds more power than revenge, and love overcomes hatred, showing that everyone deserves a second chance. The story has ended, but its impact continues to live on in every child who reconsidered bullying a classmate, in every adult who stepped in upon witnessing injustice, in every person who grasped a simple truth: our actions matter, our words carry weight, and each of us has the ability to influence the world for better or for worse. The choice always belongs to us. In Boston, in a modest apartment above a bookstore, Michael Harrison was reading a report from Chasho regarding the work of the Aaron Wells Foundation. Over 3 years, they had managed to prevent numerous cases of teenage bullying, rehabilitated more than 300 aggressive youths, and supported thousands of bullying victims. On the wall hung a photo of his daughter Emily, the very same one he had once stood facing the wall in a school classroom. Now he could look at her without pain, remembering not only the tragedy, but also the good that arose from that suffering. His phone rang. It was Aaron. "Hello, son. How are you?" Over the years, their bond had grown almost fatherly. Michael had become the mentor Aaron lacked during his darkest times. "Great. We just finished a presentation in Chicago. I think we reached many kids." "I am proud of you. Proud of all of you. Michael, I wanted to say thank you for everything." "For what?" "For not letting us all give up. For showing that meaning can be drawn from any kind of pain." Michael smiled. "You figured it out yourselves, guys. I merely guided you." "Where would you go now?" Michael glanced at the letter resting on the table. The school principal in Texas had asked for his assistance. There were issues with teenage aggression there as well. In Dallas, children needed support too. "We will see each other for sure. Keep saving the world, kids." After the conversation, Michael packed a suitcase. Inside was a worn photograph of himself with his wife and little Emily during a family picnic. The picture had been taken 1 month before the tragedy that changed his life forever. Back then, he believed his calling was simply to teach children literature. Now he understood his mission was much deeper, helping kids realize that their words and actions carry consequences, that everyone can choose to cause pain or to heal it. And as long as there are people like Aaron Wells, Carter Blake, Jake Martinez, and Dylan Cooper, individuals who transformed their suffering into strength and their errors into wisdom, humanity holds hope because each of us can change. Each of us can improve, and everyone deserves a second chance.